I told the farmer's wife I just got back from a date, and she looked at me the way a summer storm looks at a dry field before it decides to burn everything to the ground. She didn't say a word for 3 long seconds, just stood there in the doorway of that kitchen with a dish towel over her shoulder and the lamplight catching the gold in her brown eyes. Then she said it, quiet and steady, like she'd been holding it inside for longer than either of us could count. She doesn't love you like I do. The words hit me harder than any boot heel ever hit frozen ground. And the worst part, the part that still keeps me up some nights, is that I already knew she was right. Her name was Clara Whitfield. She was 31 years old, with dark chestnut hair she wore pinned up most of the time. But that fell loose around her shoulders when the day got long, and the work wore her down to something softer. She had high cheekbones and a strong jaw, the kind of face that didn't need anything added to it. Just clean and honest, and entirely too beautiful for a woman stuck on a homestead 40 miles from the nearest town. Her eyes were that deep amber brown that caught light like whiskey in a glass, and when she laughed, which wasn't often enough, it changed the whole character of a room. She was slim but sturdy, the kind of woman who could mend a fence in the morning and bake bread in the afternoon without complaining about either. She wore long cotton dresses, mostly dark blue or dusty gray, covered in a flour-stained apron that never seemed to come off. She moved through that farmhouse like she'd built every inch of it herself, quiet and certain, like she owned every corner of the land, even when the deed said otherwise. Her husband was Raymond Whitfield, 43, broad-shouldered with graying temples and a permanent frown carved into the lines of his face from years of bad weather and harder luck. He wasn't a cruel man, but he wasn't a present one either. He looked at Clara the way a man looks at a fence post, like it serves a purpose, and that's reason enough to leave it standing. He didn't see her. I'm not sure he ever had. I was Cole Merritt, 34, a drifter by nature and by necessity, brown hair that ran a little long, dark eyes, jaw that hadn't seen a proper razor in 4 days when I first rode up to the Whitfield place, asking if they needed a farmhand for the season. I was lean from years of riding and working ranch to ranch, dressed in a worn leather vest over a faded work shirt, canvas trousers tucked into trail boots that had more miles on them than I could count. I carried a .44 revolver on my hip, not because I was looking for trouble, but because trouble had a way of finding men who rode alone. I had no home I was going back to, no woman waiting, no particular reason to stay anywhere, until I rode up that dusty road to the Whitfield homestead, and Clara came out onto the porch to see who it was. That was September. By November, I understood why a man could lose his whole life on 40 acres. The morning I arrived, the sky was the color of old bone, pale and dry and stretching out forever over the flat prairie. I'd been riding for 2 days out of a dying town called Harrow's Crossing, onto where the work dried up around the same time the creek did. Someone on the road had mentioned the Whitfield farm, said the rancher was a hard man but fair, that the pay was decent, and they always needed another hand before winter hit. I didn't have better options. Raymond Whitfield met me at the gate, looked me up and down the way a man inspects livestock, asked me 3 questions. Could I fix a fence? Could I handle horses? Would I be gone by spring? I said yes to all 3. He shook my hand, showed me to the bunkhouse, and told me supper was at 6, and the rules were simple. Work hard, stay out of the house, and don't bother his wife. I said I understood. I met Clara that same evening when she brought a tin plate out to the bunkhouse. Raymond had decided to eat alone on the porch, and she didn't want the new hand going hungry his first night. She knocked once, set the plate on the table just inside, and when she looked up and found me watching her, she didn't flinch or look away. "You ride a long way?" she asked. "Long enough," I said. "Hungry long way or short way?" Ma'am? She almost smiled. Long hungry or short hungry? Tells me whether to bring more biscuits. I told her I hadn't eaten since morning. She came back 10 minutes later with 4 biscuits, wrapped in a cloth and a jar of black coffee, set it down without a word, and walked back to the house through the dark like a woman who'd learned not to take up too much space. I stood in the doorway watching her go and thought, there's something wrong about that picture. A woman who moves like that, careful and contained, like she's afraid of being too much, doesn't come that way naturally. That gets taught. I ate the biscuits. They were the best I'd had in 2 years. That was the first night. If you're new here and this story is already pulling you in, go ahead and subscribe to the channel right now. And drop in the comments what city you're watching from. We read everyone, and leave a little heart for every city that shows up. Now let's get back to Cole and Clara. The work in those first weeks was hard and constant. Raymond kept 3 other hands besides me. A quiet Mexican named Tobias, who knew horses better than any man I'd ever seen. So there's an older fellow called Dutch, who drank too much but swung a hammer like he was born for it. And a young kid named Emmett, maybe 19, who was eager and clumsy in equal measure. I started talking to Clara by accident the second week. I was fixing the hinge on the main barn door when she came out to hang laundry on the line 20 feet away and started humming something I half recognized. An old hymn with a melody that didn't quite match the words. Without thinking much about it, I said, "My mother used to hum that same song." She stopped humming, looked over at me. "You remember her?" she asked. "Some," I said. "Enough." "Where is she now?" "Gone, long time ago." Clara was quiet a moment, pinning a work shirt to the line. "I'm sorry." "Don't need to be, it was a long time ago." "Still counts," she said simply. 2 words that said something about how she moved through the world. Nothing too small to matter. Nothing old enough to be dismissed. I reckon that was the moment I started paying attention to Clara Whitfield in a way that was going to cause me trouble. October came in cold and fast, with wind that came off the northern plains and cut through everything you wore. On the days she'd bring lunch out to where we were working, Clara would stop and talk. Not about nothing, the way some folks do to fill silence, but about actual things. She asked me once where I'd come from before Harrow's Crossing. I told her about the ranches I'd worked across Kansas and Nebraska, about a winter near the Colorado border, helping trail cattle through a blizzard that should have killed us all. She listened with her full attention, those amber eyes steady on my face, and when I finished, she said, "You've been alone a long time." It wasn't a question. "Reckon so," I said. "Does it bother you?" "Used to. Got used to it." She looked at me a moment longer than she needed to. "Getting used to something isn't the same as it not bothering you anymore," she said, and walked back to the house before I could think of anything to say. I turned that sentence over in my head for 3 days. The trouble started the last week of October, when a cold front settled in so hard that Raymond sent the other hands to town for supplies and kept me back to manage the livestock. Just the 3 of us for 4 days. On the second day, the pump in the kitchen stopped working. Raymond was out dealing with steers that had broken through the south fence. He'd be gone until dark. So Clara came out to the barn, her breath making small clouds in the freezing air, and told me about the pump. "I can look at it," I said. "I hate to ask," she said. "You didn't ask. I offered." She led me inside. I kept my eyes on the work, the worn leather valve, the iron fitting come loose from the wall, and fixed everything in about 40 minutes. When Clara ran water and it came out clean and steady, she made a sound of relief so genuine, it made me smile. "Much obliged," she said quietly. She set a pot on the stove without asking whether I wanted coffee. For a half hour we just talked. About the winter, about a book she was reading that was too long, but too good to put down. I watched her move around that kitchen and thought about what she'd be like if she didn't have to ration herself. Why, if there was someone in her life who asked for the whole measure of her instead of just enough to get by. I didn't say any of that. I drank my coffee and thanked her, and went back to the barn before I said something I couldn't take back. The night that changed things was early November. I'd ridden into Decker's Mill on an errand for Raymond. There was a widow woman named Louise Pratt who ran a boarding house and had been throwing smiles my way since the first time I'd come through. She was handsome enough, dark-haired and lively, and that evening she'd asked me to stay for supper. I said yes because I was a lonely man, and it seemed simple enough. It was fine. Pleasant company. Good meal. For a few hours I sat across from a woman who was entirely available and entirely interested, and I told myself this was the sensible path. Clara Whitfield was a married woman. She hadn't said or done a single thing improper. Whatever I thought I felt wasn't real. Just the loneliness of the frontier, making ordinary kindness seem like more than it was. I rode back to the Whitfield farm in the dark, talked myself into believing it. I tied my horse and came around the side of the house toward the bunkhouse, and Clara was standing on the back porch. When she heard me, she turned, and something crossed her face that she didn't manage to put away fast enough. "Didn't expect you back this late," she said. "Supper ran long," I said. She nodded, looking back at the sky. "Louise Pratt." I stopped. "How'd you know that?" "Decker's Mill is a small town," she said. I stood there in the cold, not sure what to say. It was just supper. She didn't respond for a long moment. When she looked back at me, her face was steady, that careful, rationed version of herself. Then she said it. "She doesn't love you like I do." The cold prairie night went absolutely still. I didn't move. I'm not sure I breathed. She held my gaze for 2 full seconds, then looked away like she hadn't just said a thing that rearranged the whole world. "Clara," I started. "Good night, Cole," she said, and went inside. The door closed, quiet and final, behind her. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the bunkhouse with the wind pressing against the walls and stared at the ceiling, thinking about those 5 words and what they meant and what they cost her to say. Because she was married. Because wanting something and taking something are 2 different things, and I'd always known the difference. But I also lay there thinking, she said it, so she didn't have to. She could have stood on that porch and let me believe everything between us was just the natural courtesy of a frontier woman toward a farmhand. She said it anyway. That meant something. 3 days passed without more than necessary words between us. On the 4th day, I found a small book on the bunkhouse step, the one she'd told me about. Too long, but too good to put down. No note. Just the book. I read 40 pages that night by lantern light and thought about a woman who gave things without asking for anything in return. On the 5th day, I went to the house at mid-morning when I knew Raymond was out on the far pasture. Clara opened the door, looked at me, and stepped aside to let me in without a word. We stood in the kitchen in the gray winter light. "What you said the other night," I started. "I shouldn't have," she said. "Maybe not. But you did. And I need you to know that I heard it." She looked at her hands. "It doesn't change anything, Cole. I know that. I'm not here to make promises I can't keep, or ask for something that isn't mine to ask for. I just need you to know that what you said, it wasn't nothing to me. You're not nothing to me." The silence in that kitchen was the loudest thing I'd ever been in. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw the full weight of what she carried. The years of being invisible in her own home, the loneliness built up like snow on a roof. Her eyes were bright with something held back. "I know," she said. "That's what makes it hard." I nodded. We stood there another moment. Then, "I'm gonna finish the season. Do the work I said I'd do. And when spring comes, I'm gonna ride out. That's the right thing. I know that too, she said, not arguing, not asking me to stay. I turned to go. Cole, she said. I stopped. You're not alone, she said. Whatever you think you are, you're not that. I walked back to the barn and stood with my hands on a fence post for a long time, trying to figure out how a man honors what he feels without destroying what other people have built, even when what they've built is something insufficient and half-broken. I didn't have an answer, but I had the question, and that was more than I'd had before. December came in like a closed fist. 3 feet of snow in the first 2 weeks, then a blizzard that locked us close to the buildings for 4 days. Clara kept everyone fed through all of it, bringing meals out through the snow wrapped in cloth, on making sure the hands had dry wool and enough coffee to function. She worked without stopping and without complaining, which was her way. On the second night of the blizzard, she brought a meal out to the barn herself because Emmett had twisted his ankle on the ice. She handed me the tin plate, and our hands touched briefly, the way they do by accident. Neither of us pulled away immediately. Just a moment. Just long enough. She looked at me in the lamplight of the barn, snow still melting in her hair, and said nothing. I said nothing. What passed between us was just the truth of two people who understood each other, acknowledging itself quietly before letting go. Then she went back through the snow to the house, so I ate my supper in the cold and thought that some things are not about what happens, but about what is felt, and then sat down with care, because they belong to something that can't survive in the world as it is, only in the part of a person that holds what might have been. January was long and cold. Clara lent me 2 more books without comment. I'd finish each one and leave it at the kitchen door with a note. A single sentence about something that stuck with me. I'd find her notes tucked between the pages of the next book. Short, careful things. Observations. Questions. The kind of conversation 2 people have when they can't have it out loud. In one note she wrote, "Do you think it's possible to know someone better through their silences than their words?" I wrote back, "I think some people hold their best selves quiet. I'm waiting to see if anyone's patient enough to wait for them." She didn't respond to that one in writing, but the next time I saw her, she looked at me with something open in her expression, less contained than usual, and I knew she'd read it. I held on to those moments like a man holds on to warmth when it's cold. The last Sunday of February, Raymond had gone to town. I was in the yard splitting wood when Clara came out of the house and walked toward me with a look I hadn't seen before. Not the careful, contained version of herself, but something open and resolute. "Raymond asked me last night if I was happy," she said. I set the axe down. "What did you tell him?" I told him I was fine. A pause, which is not the same thing, and we both knew it. "What happened?" "Nothing dramatic. He just looked at me." Actually looked, and for the first time in a long time. And I think he saw something he didn't expect to see. She was quiet a moment. "I think he's been afraid to look for a while. Easier not to." "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Stay," she said. "This is my home. Raymond isn't a bad man. He's just a limited one. And sometimes that's what life hands you." She met my eyes. "But I wanted you to know. What I said on the porch in November, I meant it. Not as a request. Not as something I expected you to do anything about. Just as the truth. Because I think you're someone who deserves to hear true things." "I think you deserve the same," I said. She almost smiled. That full, rare smile that changed everything. "I reckon so," she said. "I'm working on it." We stood there in the cold winter morning. 2 people who understood each other clearly and completely. Not everything, but something real and honest and worth the weight it carried. Before we reach the end of this story, If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the moment. Hit that button and tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. We'll leave a heart for every single one. Now, let's see Cole to the road. I rode out the first week of March. Raymond paid me what he owed, and then some. Shook my hand. Said if I was ever back this way, the bunkhouse was mine. Emmett and Dutch waved from the fence. Tobias nodded once, which from him was a whole conversation. Clara came out to the yard when I was tying my gear to the saddle. She stood near the horse while I finished. When I was done, I turned and faced her. "You going to be all right?" I asked. "I'm going to be honest," she said, which was a different answer. "That's the best I can do." "That's plenty," I said. She reached into her apron pocket and brought out a small folded piece of paper and pressed it into my hand. "Something to read," she said. "I'll read it when I'm down the road a ways." "That's fine," she said. I climbed onto my horse. I looked at her one last time. The chestnut hair, the amber eyes, the woman who held her best self quiet and rationed her warmth against a world that hadn't always earned it. A woman who was more than her 40 acres, even if she was going to spend her life on them. "Much obliged, Clara," I said, "for everything." "Ride safe, Cole Merritt," she said. And she didn't look away until I cleared the gate. I rode east for about an hour before I unfolded the paper. She'd written only one line. "Now, you know what it feels like to be seen." I read it twice, folded it back up, put it in my vest pocket, close to me. The prairie spread out in every direction, flat and wide and entirely open. The sky above enormous and pale. The kind of sky that doesn't make promises, but doesn't take them away either. Somewhere behind me, 40 miles back, a woman was standing in her kitchen making coffee with the pump I'd fixed in October, tending to 40 acres that were entirely hers in every way that mattered. I reckon some people come into your life not to change it, but to mark it, to show you who you are by the way they see you. Clara Whitfield did that for me. She saw something in a drifter with no fixed address and no particular history, and she said, "This counts. You count." And she said it the only way she could, through a book left on a doorstep, through 5 words on a cold November porch, through a single line pressed into the hand of a man riding away. She didn't love me the way Louise Pratt would have, easy and uncomplicated and forward-looking. She loved me with the part of herself she kept most protected. She handed it over carefully and honestly, without asking me to stay and without asking me to go, just offering it the way you offer a true thing when you've decided truth is worth more than safety. I've met a lot of people in my traveling years, worked for hard men and easy ones, slept under more open skies than I can count. I've been alone in the way that gets into your bones. And I can tell you, from the far side of that winter on the Whitfield ranch, so that being truly seen by one honest person is worth more than 100 conversations with 100 friendly strangers. That's a kind of love that stays with a man, even when the road takes him a long, long way from 40 acres and a farmhouse kitchen and a pump that finally runs clean. Even then,